My name's Ryan. I go by PapaPauper online, and I won Common Cause 9 with Third Path Iconoclast.
If you like what we do here, be sure to like and subscribe. Even support us on Patreon. Now let's go. I always start this out. And I'm like, how the hell do I start this out? But that's the thing. You are a repeat guest, so we don't have to do that normal like spiel shtick bullshit that we normally do. We can just roll right into it.
Everyone else.
Yeah, no doubt. So, if you didn't know, there was a little bit of an online tournament over the weekend, and it was Common Cause 9, and some random like vagrant off the street brought this like deck and then beat a bunch of people and won. And oh, there he is right there. I didn't mean to say all that in front of you. So my friend Ryan did it again. Oops, I did it again. Took down a tournament. You were 3 and a draw. Is that what it was?
3 and a draw. Yep.
3 and a draw, which is awkward. I think you're the first person to go 3 and a draw. Most people just go like 3 and 1 like normal people, you know.
Yeah, and I don't think any of my wins were any of the previous 3 before this one had a draw in them. Yeah.
Gotta be special, gotta be different, you know.
I know, right? It was just one of those games where like everybody drew the reactive onboard pieces needed to make sure that nobody could actually win the game. It was pretty unusual. It was like 2 Aether Spell Bombs, Nihil Spell Bomb, like Essence Warden in play that made, Adam had like 43 life or something. It was just like, okay, none of us are going to die.
Before we get into that, we got a PSA we got to put out. So every once in a while, so Ryan almost didn't make his round 1. So he was there on time, he was at the player meeting, and every once in a while, so if you use like OBS, so I use OBS to treat my battlefield space to make it more, I can adjust the lighting. I've got these undercarriage lights, the underglow as it were.
Yeah.
But I use OBS to like really treat it and make sure that my cards are nice and crisp and sharp and all that stuff. Well, every once in a while, OBS and Spell Table just do not get along. So if you are out there listening to this, add in a little bit of a pre-check like thing to your tournament experience. About 45 minutes prior to any tournament, especially if it's online. Especially if it's online, I basically look for updates. I restart my computer. I make sure that all my apps are updated, and I make sure that all the things work the way that they're supposed to. That reminds me, my Battlefield camera's way up there in the air still because I had to go native with Spell Table. So yeah,
I mean, it was a good reminder to do that before the tournament. I kind of, as with many of the tournaments, I kind of rolled out of bed. A lot of times prior to the tournament, the day before, it's a little bit difficult for me to go to sleep, I think. And a lot of times I'm also, because I'm busy with a lot of other stuff, I don't have like a deck that I'm planning like months in advance for, which is a lot of the reason why I kind of default to something that I have in paper that I have the cards for, and something that I'm familiar with. I think it's really nice to be able to play something you're really familiar with, because during the tournament, your burden mentally is going to be a lot lower because you're not learning something new.
Yep.
And so when I looked at what I had available and I was like registering last minute, I was like, I have like Hollow Marauder, I have Third Path Iconoclast, I have a couple of others in paper. There's a whole bunch of other decks that I wanted to play for the tournament and for the last tournament as well that I just didn't have assembled. And in fact, I was planning on bringing a mono green control deck to this tournament. And
well, it's a good thing you didn't. But also, you big jerk. I just rolled out of bed and won a tournament. So before we get into all of the hubbub specific to the tournament, we already kind of covered this, like your preparation. You didn't prepare. You just played something that you had. You rolled out of bed. Had technical difficulties. Got in. Went 3 in a draw. Yeah, like screw you jerk.
It's like when you can use Spell Table and like all this stuff hundreds of times, and then on the day of a tournament show up and it's just not working, and it's not for any reason that I've ever diagnosed before. Where there's like certain ways to like reset it and all this stuff, and none of it was working. We had to get like an 18 or 20 minute extension because it was just fundamentally not working.
Which we didn't use all the time either.
No,
Yeah.
and it was like the solution to it was something very arcane. I had to like unplug my other camera and then use a different camera. So my setup, which you'll actually be able to see here, if it tracks this one right here.
Yep.
It was completely screwing everything up. And so I unplugged that one, set the other one up, mounted it in some weird way, managed to make it work. But I will say that start to the tournament was a little more stressful than I wanted it to be. Not because I was like, not because of anything other than the technical difficulty and not wanting to hold everybody else up. So I did start the tournament a lot more flustered than I normally would, because my main goal coming into a tournament is to get games of Magic in. I don't get to play nearly as much as I'd like to. And so when I'm coming into a tournament, like my baseline expectation is like, I'm just here to play games of Magic, have fun, hang out with people that I don't always get to spend a lot of time with. And then the results are not really material to me, because it's like this is like entertainment. I'm paying $17 for entry into a tournament, and I get to hang out with my friends and play Magic. I don't really have much attachment to the results, and so usually I come in very low key. And this time was like 20 minutes of technical difficulties beforehand, and it was just
we need to bring back we need to bring back the pull-up bar and crunch machine. That's what we need to do.
Oh,
so
the
the real ones would remember that one. So okay.
Yes.
So after
the
this,
had a lot of fun with that.
After this tournament data has been entered, I was lucky enough to have the opportunity to upload it this morning. So if you're watching this video, then the data from Common Cause 9 is live. And after this tournament, I've got a couple of tools that I kind of use on the back end to help me keep track of stuff. And TPI, after this particular tournament, its most frequent opponent in the pod when winning is Gretchen, followed by Elias Ilkor, I can never say that right, Rissa Rail, Abdel Candlekeep Sage, so there's a little bit of an older guy there, and then Abdel Adrian, Agent of the Iron Throne, and then the most...
So it has a positive win rate against those?
It has a positive win rate. Now, this is where it gets interesting. The most frequent opponent in the pod when you're losing, when TPI is losing, not just you, so this is all TPIs, is Gretchen. So Gretchen has a 60% win rate against you, a 66%, because the number is 7 games losing against you, 14 games winning against you. So a 66% win rate against you, which is not, unnotable. And then Abdel Blue, Abdel Black, Tatiova, and Gut round out the decks that are most frequently in the pod when TPI is losing.
That's really interesting. Yeah, the matchups for me personally that I think about the most in terms of threatening opponents are going to be any sort of black-based pinging deck, because for one, they are every 2 damage to everybody, 2 life loss to everybody, and then gain 2 that they have is undoing 1 to 2 of my spells. They're undoing the work, because every spell that I cast is dealing 1 to 2 damage, generally speaking. So when they play like a Vampire Spawn or an Okiba Gang Shinobi or anything like that, they're undoing my work while doing exactly what they want. So it's interesting, in a pod where you have like a mono black pinging deck, maybe like a Sivrus Iron Throne, or you have a what would be another one, like a Thrall Parasite, or you have a Witherbloom Apprentice, or you have anything where it's doing damage and gaining you life, a Dina, something like that. They're benefiting a lot from the pressure that I'm putting on people's life total, while also suffering none in return. And so I become a useful rube for them. And the thing is that
that's how I describe you on a regular basis, a useful rube.
Yeah. Just a tool, a very sharp tool. The funny thing is that those matchups, you get pinched when you're playing TPI, because they're not the prime problem at the table, probably, because they're also a mid-range or control deck, which means that I'm betting on, I'm pretty much having to bet on like a 1v1 with them, where I burn them out with like a flurry of burn spells or something like that, or outgrinding them with card advantage. But like, I don't gain life with TPI, and that's actually one of its big vulnerabilities, is that every life point that you lose is for the most part dead and gone. If you look at now the list that you all will see that was linked for the tournament has changed since the tournament. So there's going to be certain things there that weren't actually reflective of what I was playing in the tournament. And what you would see there is that there is one way.
Before you deep dive into that, I've got other things that other stats that I want to cover.
What are the stats? Let's hear it. We'll do that first, and then we'll dive into the deck.
Exactly. because they, this is cPDH.guide. They came for the data. They didn't come for the pretty face over there on the other side of the screen.
I'm surprised to hear that Abdel is a matchup in which TPI is favored, because Abdel is a black pinging deck in a lot of ways. You have like cards like Gary that can undo essentially like an entire game's worth of damage.
So it's a dichotomy the same way Gretchen is. So Abdel is now, once again, this is reporting on all the TPI lists that are entered, so not just specifically yours.
Yeah, right.
So Abdel, Agent of the Iron Throne, has 3 games where you're favored or TPI's favored, and then it has 7 games where it is not favored. So there's this weird shift. So
yeah, and TPI decks are not all built the same. Third Path Iconoclast can be built in so many different ways. We've never really seen, or I will say, I personally have never seen anybody play like an aggro variant, but with all of like the pack attack, the trumpet blast effects, you could definitely do it, right? It's definitely doable. But then you've got your mid-range pinger variant that I play and that I've been championing, and then you've got your banishing knack lists like you picked up, and then you've got like what's his name, the lad from RAW, not RAW, but from Philadelphia, who
Berkowitz, Ross Berkowitz. So
Ross.
Ross's list,
like Flicker.
Ross's list is not too dissimilar to yours. He just has a combo finish. So his intention...
It's pretty different. It's like 40 or 50 cards different.
Right, but the point that I'm getting at is that, you are working towards a manual card advantage storm type circumstance. He truncates that by introducing an infinite combo.
Yeah, and he has also, one of the big differences is that he runs these... his deck is almost fundamentally built around Ashnod's Altar, not as a combo piece explicitly, but one that facilitates all these other things, right? So like he has like these chunky 4 mana scry 4 draw 2 effects, like Tamio's what was it called? Tamio's
getting in the weeds again. You see this blinking on the screen.
Basically,
I'm going through my windows.
His deck is really different.
Yeah,
his deck is really different, but it still ends with a pinger. The pinger is still the outlet for it. The difference is that I'm doing it without an infinite combo, and he is. But there's like the cantrips, all the card selection is the same. He just has a higher end to his draws. So yeah, but the main point being there's a lot of different variants. So even when you're looking at the data,
okay, I'm just gonna close these windows. We're never gonna get to.
Well, when you're looking at the data, there's a lot of different variants of TPI that we're gonna have really different matchups, right? Like my lists are going to be hurt a lot more by a black pinger deck like Abdel, whereas his not so much, because it doesn't matter if he's gained 100 life, you won the game, you comboed off. So it's going to vary a lot matchup to matchup with those.
Taking a break for me, thank you. Okay, so I looked along with the commander analysis tool. I've also got the player analysis tool. Blah blah blah. There's not really anything to you. You don't really, anyone of consequence, you really, that is a horrible thing to say. I shouldn't have said that.
Get out.
Yeah. There's no, like I am in pods where you lose most often, but I have played against you enough times to kind of recognize how you play. There are other players, or at least another player in there. Well, 2 other players that have played against you often enough that, they've recognized your play patterns and exploited that. Some of that's a little bit of a non-issue now. The main reason why I wanted to bring up the player is not even to goad you. It's any chance that I have the opportunity to bust the chops of Beachbot God 69. He is the number 1 player that you play against who is likely to be in the pod where you're winning. The number 1 player. In 21% of your games, he's lost to you.
It makes some sense, and to a degree, Beach has been, or Adam has been promoting the Mystic Enforcer deck, and Mystic Enforcer is a response to decks like Hollow Marauder, and so it's a meta call that when people are playing something like Hollow Marauder, you've got this pro-black flyer that's bigger than Hollow Marauder, and it does a pretty good job of containing what it does. The discard is hard on it, but in general, it like if you put TPI in that slot instead of Hollow Marauder, then that's suddenly not good for Mystic Enforcer. Mystic Enforcer does benefit from the fact that it's a flyer, and TPI does not have flyers in the deck. I don't have blockers for Mystic Enforcer. And my removal, if he gets like All That Glitters or an Ancestral Mask on it, is not going to scale. It's not tending to scale as well. Like my Lightning Bolts and my Improvised Clubs and all that stuff, if I have to use like 2 of them to kill his Mystic Enforcer, that's not great. And it's probably not going to work because he'll just have some protection spell. But generally speaking, though, TPI and Mystic Enforcer, that's something where I'm more comfortable in that matchup. They don't have a lot of tools that I need to really worry about. Like they don't have Pestilence, they don't have Crypt Rats, they don't have Fiery Cannonade, no Breath Weapon, no Sulphurous Blast. They're the only answer they might have would be something like Holy Day, or not Holy Day, but Holy Light, -1/-1 to all non-white creatures at instant speed. So yeah, I do feel pretty comfortable with that matchup. I also think though that it's one of those ones where like me and the Mystic Enforcer player are not enemies because they have a lot of ways to not die to me that other decks don't. They're going to have your Soul Sisters, you're going to have your Essence Wardens. Those things are really brutal because a single 1-mana spell on turn 1 turns off my pinging until I get another one. And in the meantime, they're gaining all this life from everyone else. So they're going to outgain my pinging. In the long game, I do feel pretty comfortable being able to win that matchup. But it also means that they're very, very hard to kill, and I can't really afford to be dealing with their shit when my counter spells and my removal are premium. Like, I've got bigger fish to fry, the things that I'm worried about dying to. So it's an interesting thing where like you're kind of frenemies. Like you there's like no reason to attack each other.
I just wanted
like, how the fuck am I supposed to kill you with 45 life?
I just wanted to add the data point because it was a way to bust Adam's chops because we love him and that sort of thing. Yeah. I mean, we'll also too, like, if you're going to check the commander matchup analysis, you might as well look at the player analysis, see if there's any like anomalous type stuff there. There really isn't. So, I mean, outside of Adam. Now, what I did do that's completely new is I ran the data because, I periodically put out like I think the last time I did this was for Q1. And then the time before that, the first time I did it was at the end of 2024, where I took a chunk of time and I provided an analysis that basically it's a strength of schedule analysis for, both players and commanders for a certain period of time. And I was curious kind of where you ranked in the last year. So from August to August of 2024 to 2025, I wanted to see where you fit because I strongly suspected that you would be at the top of that list. Well, I can tell you you're not because you suck. Actually, you are and you're not. And I'll tell you why. So you're not the top player. Ginger, Pine Ginger of Bilbo Baggins fame, and what's that silly dragon that Furnace Hellkite that he plays?
Furnace Hellkite?
Yeah. So this tracks all of the organized data that has been collected from last August to this August, which includes Ginger's league. So Ginger, by virtue of having 61 games played in his league over the last year, kind of easily takes the top spot. He's got 25 wins and a 40% win rate. Now, you come in second with a 55% win rate. Now, the only reason why Ginger's in that top spot is volume and because he's played against some of the same people you've played against, he had a better strength of schedule. So that's another nice thing about these strength percentage. So that's a nice thing. And even then, like the split, like for example, the composite adjustment is not a percentage, but the way it reads is so for Ginger, it's 0.3535. Yours is 0.3511. So it's like,
oh, wow.
That close.
Very narrow.
So,
yeah. So the beauty of it is that at the end of the day, just here to get games of Magic in. Yeah. That's the beauty of it.
That's actually a great transition because, and not to get all dark, but you almost stopped playing Magic.
There was a period of time with the job that I've got, where I was adjusting to a lot of responsibility. And for those of you who don't know, I work for an Indian tribe in the U.S. And that responsibility is one to that community that is felt really, I think, very keenly by me.
Mhm.
And it was also the first, it was essentially my return to employment after a long period of COVID-induced unemployment. And so I think as many people would understand, that job and, making that job, being as successful as I possibly could in that job, not only meant that for the first time I had a lot of like financial stability that I haven't had in my life, but it meant more to me than just about anything in the world. So I knew that when I got into that job that it was going to require a sacrifice in a way. And I didn't know what that initially would look like, right? But that I knew that the price of having, that security would be outweighed by the fact that I would actually be able to make investments in my live stream again. I would actually at some point be able to play more frequently, that I'd be able to return to making content with the money that I had, because I started this whole, this thing when we kind of joined forces together, really bootstrapping it. Like, at one point you sent me this camera that I've got up here. My computer was falling apart. Literally, like, most of the videos on the Common Connoisseurs were taken on a computer that could have just lit on fire at any moment, because it was like trying to run OBS on it on a computer that was like that old was a lot to expect from it. So now I have, I have a great recording setup. I've got good mic. I've got a great, computer, and all of those things were essentially sort of my copium for knowing that in the meantime, I wasn't going to be able to do a lot of that. And when I got into the job, it got really stressful, especially, I think with the change in U.S. government too, my job has become quite a bit harder. And, because the work I do is sustainability oriented, and I'm also working with tribes, and the current administration is very hostile to tribes. And so, so essentially that's kind of what happened. Now, the whole time I was like repeating a mantra to myself in many ways, which is that I'm not leaving this. This is just a pause. And that maintained all the way through. At no point did it ever feel like something where I was like, man, I'm like not going to be able to come back to this. There were times where I sort of worried about it, just because the amount of time away. It was a year and 2 months, away from making content before I came back. And admittedly, every day coming home from work, I was pretty exhausted. I was working like a lot of hours and was learning a new environment, new culture, right? And so, yeah, it took a long time to come back. And I really, really did not savor that. Honestly, stepping away from content and stepping away from engaging with the community in that way was one of the harder decisions I've made in life, I would say, because the emotional attachment I have to this work, to the side hustle, to this game, are much more significant post-COVID. Magic was one of the ways that I kept sane when the sort of, the way things were is you can like leave your house if you need groceries. Right? And I had just come back from Costa Rica, living like a year in the jungle outside, and I came home to that, and it was very jarring. So really, like the start of the Common Connoisseurs and of this whole project was as an outlet for something that I could do during COVID, and it became a tool for kind of like staying sane during that time. It was my coping mechanism. So to leave that or to take pause from it really sucked, and it sucked also to tell people like, hey, I'm coming back at some point. I don't know when that is. I can't make you that promise, right? Because I don't actually know, right? And that was definitely a sacrifice, but it was also like the adult decision to make. It was kind of like the wise mind, knowing that this work was the most important thing for me. I mean, this house that I have here now, right? This place that I can live, this comfortable place that I get to have to myself, with some savings and stuff. All of that is because of that job, and it came at the cost of me not being able to make content for a year. So, yeah. So that and it's interesting because that time period is also when I had the most success in tournaments. And I think that there's a through line there that's really interesting. For those of you out there that have been really into something, if you've ever taken a step away from it, it can kind of feel scary because you don't know whether you're going to come back. Like I used to do martial arts for a long time, and then I broke my wrist, and that meant that I didn't come back because life took over and there were other things, right?
Yep.
And so you never know when something is going to derail things in such a way that you are no longer going to be able to do the thing that you want to do. You could get injured, you could get sick, you could get a new job, you could marry somebody and have kids, and then suddenly it's all different. And the funny thing is that when you come back, or I'll speak for myself, when I came back, my relationship with Magic was different. And I think that explains the success that I've had, because I'm able to come into these tournaments with no expectations.
I think it's
I think that there's definitely an element of practice, that the practice makes perfect or practice makes better. But at the same vein, like I've noticed even with mountain biking, that when I like take a step back from it, I'm away from it for 6 months, I come back to it and I'm mountain biking, and it's like I'm actually better than what I was before because my brain's had time to digest all that.
Yeah,
So,
when you're consistently engaged, your brain, I mean, it's the reason why we dream when we sleep, right? Your brain is trying to process whatever it is that you're going through.
that's a really, really good way of saying it.
So
Yeah.
so when you're constantly engaged with the thing, you're not giving yourself the opportunity to process it. So any lessons that you learn will be minimal. So
Or you'll get diminishing returns,
mm,
right? And there's also like burnout as well, which is like, this is a very complicated game, and we have a lot of sets coming out. And I think a lot of people are like feeling that inundation right now, where there's like, you get to pre-release, and at pre-release, they're advertising to you the next set, and before pre-release, the next set is being spoiled.
mhm.
And so I think there's even an element of that where I felt that tension, where it's like, Jesus Christ, like by the time I've got the video done for the set review, the spoilers were already coming out. That happened with Edge of Eternities, where I finished it up, and then like that morning, the next morning after I did that video, Spider-Man was out,
Mhm.
or like being spoiled,
Buy
right?
products, buy it.
Buy. You know, it's like, and then like Avatar: The Last Airbender had already started having stuff come out, and so I think that time away definitely like helped me integrate maybe some of my thinking. It helped me like, especially if you have a deck that you're really in love with, something that you just have really curated, and you've worked a lot on it. You've stared at the list for like hours and hours and hours. It can be very, very difficult to make changes to it because you're too close to it.
Mhm.
And having time away, I was able to come back and I built the best deck I've ever built ever. And it was a completely different way of building a deck, one that I had previously not had any confidence in, which is self mill. I really did not like self mill. It felt like a very random kind of a thing. I came back, and with zero practice, I rolled in with Hollow Marauder, and nobody had sort of cracked the code on it yet, and I was able to build something really, really outside of my tool, like my toolbox and my experience, because I'd had that time away. Like the decks that I'm building now are definitely the best thing that I've ever made, and I think that there's probably an element of that was like just time away, like a break.
Yeah.
It's okay and good to take breaks. It's very
Well,
healthy, in fact, to take breaks from things you love.
so for all you out there, I mean, in case you didn't know, Ryan's already back to making content somewhat semi-regularly, so he's back. The dry spell is over.
And and I will say too, I never actually left, in the sense that I still continued on
In the Discord.
managing and growing the server in the Discord. And I'll say too, another fun data point: the common connoisseurs grew by over 35% in the time that I had away.
Mm-hmm. It's because you got a great team.
Yep.
You have a solid group of people supporting you in that tournament.
Pile of unicorns, basically, like really rare individuals with really great ethics, who are like knowledgeable and passionate about the game and the format. And that was actually a product of that, as I realized with my job that I needed help, and that I couldn't do it all myself, and that I didn't want to do it all myself, and that I wanted to offer other people, in exchange for helping me with that, opportunities to build thought leadership, to be leaders in the community, to be icons of the format, where people can recognize them for their knowledge and their skill and their passion and stuff. And that has been a resounding success, with Caleb,
Erosium.
and and with we've got Jonathan on there, we've got Jorbalicious, we've got Vector, and more recently we got Adam, and all these people have made that possible. So there's definitely a lesson in that too. You don't need to carry all the weight on your own, right? And I think that was a big personal growth thing for me too, because I think especially perhaps for men, but not maybe exclusively, asking for help and being vulnerable,
Mhm.
and then letting go of control, because that's part of it. Is like, if I want them to be in positions of leadership, I also need to
Trust.
allow those folks and trust them through my choice. So my choices have to be very good, and then once they're good, trust in that decision making that I went through, to allow them to take things where they wanted
Mhm.
to go. Right. And that was a huge point of personal growth for me. And I'm really, really proud of myself for that. And I'm also really proud of the team that we've assembled. And that team is not done growing yet, because managing a server with 850 people in it, for those of you that don't know, you may not see when you get in Discord the numbers. Common Connoisseurs is just massive. There's so many people in there. And it's not just the work of moderator, where you're like,
I believe you're the largest cPDH focused Discord and the largest cPDH focused YouTube.
yes, the YouTube might not be. I think Lobert is. Lobert's had a lot of success with his videos, but still, regardless, the Discord size is disproportionate. It's very large, and when I'm talking about like moderating that space, it's not very often, because of the vibe that we set, that we need to deal with any sort of like bad actors. Like, that's a very, very small fraction of it. The moderators are there to set a certain tone and lead by example. And finding people who can do that in this space is a lot of work.
I
you know,
haven't,
and
I mean, no, this is no shade on, because Arosium was a mod on the .guide server for a while until he reduced his workload. I also have Adam, and we've got Russell Harder, and we had Jonathan for a while. So, like, trying to replicate what we did on CC has been somewhat of a challenge in .guide.
a lot of work.
Yeah.
Well, and you imagine like where I was at, where I talked about my job, and I knew that to keep the ball rolling on the community, for the community, right? Because for those of you that are wondering, there's like zero money in this content creation stuff. You know, this is the funds from all this.
I see the numbers. Yeah.
Yeah, they're very much in the hole, and that's okay. You know, I do this because I really care about it. I really want people to have a way to play Magic competitively that doesn't cost you thousands of dollars. I love this format. I love this community to death. There's a reason why I stuck with it when things were really hard, and when I wasn't, you know, making money, because that wasn't the goal in the first place. It was to just like have a creative outlet where I could express my way of deck building and share with people my ideas and help broaden the horizons of the format. And but you imagine the position that I was in at one point where I was like very stressed with the job that I was working and working a lot of hours, needed a lot of decompression time, coming home from work almost every single day and like zoning out on the couch for like 1 to 3 hours to recover for the next day. And doing that for approximately
not to mention relationships and all that other stuff.
And relationship stuff. Yep. I went through a major breakup during the time, had to move out of the house that I was in. There was a lot of stressors. And then I realized among all those stressors that I would also have to then assemble, and curate that team, which is work, as you're finding, right? Again,
I have
to find.
Yeah, I actually have more to follow, but I actually have plans in place that are slowly working. That is going to transform .guide. Only a very, very small handful of people know about it. So
yeah, good.
Well,
I always love to hear that. Exciting stuff on the horizons.
It won't surprise you. I think when you hear it, it won't surprise you at all. So, no,
there's very little Clay that you do that surprises me. We're way too good of friends to be surprised about anything that you and I do in this space. So.
Okay, so enough with the sad stuff. Yes,
yeah, a little personal. No, it's not sad.
Yeah.
And actually, I do want to caveat that this period of my life has been an enormous opportunity for growth, and challenges like this are the crucible in which we grow. So it's like that classic line. It's like a mantra in my head, and I'll probably get it tattooed on my body. Mm-hmm. Good, bad, hard to tell. Because like the person that I am today, and the place that I am today, and the things that I'm doing today, and the friends that I've got, and the community I've got online and elsewhere, are things that I would not trade for the world. Mm-hmm. And yes, it was hard, and that's okay.
Yeah,
and
I'm just here to be your heel, man. That's it. I pitch you this softball, and you knock it out of the park. All right, tournament time. So
tournament time. Let's fucking do this.
So you played against a badass mofo in the first round who narrowly lost to you. Tell me about that big sexy man.
Bad Orzhov. Yeah, so game one, you were in first seat on Corpse Knight, which for those of you who don't know is every time a creature enters the battlefield, it deals 1 damage to each opponent, and it's damage. The build that you were on was on Rabbits on the Heir Apparent, mm-hmm. which was really cool. Then player 2 was the Dredge King on Fear of Burning Alive, which I was very, very tickled to see in the pod. I think Fear of Burning Alive is a strongly underplayed commander. The ability to push pressure on people's life totals while also killing their creatures is kind of doing what Legate Lanius wants to do. Legate Lanius, is the 4-mana Rakdos commander, comes in, edicts the board, and then it gets bigger when people sack things. The difference there is that Legate's a little cheaper. It's Rakdos instead of mono red, so it's got good card advantage and stuff.
Good
but
removal.
That big creature and the removal is also a little more flexible, destroying creatures instead of doing damage to them. But Fear of Burning Alive is awesome. You're killing things while doing damage to your opponent. You're reducing the board, controlling the board. It's an ETB. When people kill your commander, it's going to come back and it's going to do the same thing. It's going to eat your creatures and it's going to do more damage. And it's really, really gross with pingers because those pingers are triggering off of ETBs, off of spellcast. And then every time you do that, you're doing damage to their creatures again. And so credit to you, Dredge King, for making a really cool deck. I think that one's still one that needs like more eyes on.
Unsleeved. He was playing unsleeved. He was playing it unsleeved, that monster.
Which I think all of us were fine with that. Just do know, of course, that unsleeved for tournaments is bit of a faux pas, but it's fine. It was a cool flex because it's like getting back to the roots, right? And then I was in position 3. Brebu was on Teshar in position 4, and so this was a really interesting game. Both you and I had problems hitting our land drops for the entire game, despite my best efforts. Yeah, you only landed on 3. I think I ended up hitting them later on, but I saw a lot of cards. It's funny because you saw less lands, but you saw less cards. I saw a lot of cards, and I found marginally more lands than you did. So I was operating off of minimal resources the whole game, and there were some really interesting tension points where Brebu with Teshar was threatening a combo win. And prior to that turn, I was thinking to my mind, based on what's in play, could I potentially die? And so I decided to slow my development, and the answer was yes. I decided to slow my development to not die, and I was rewarded for it. But it hurt. It meant that I didn't play my Arcane Signet. It meant that I didn't cast my Of One Mind. It meant that I didn't play a pinger on multiple turns. And so that was scary, which meant that by the time we got to, low life totals, I was not operating off of the number of resources that I would hope to. And that was spooky. So this is a very close game. You had some really powerful turns leveraging Dread Return with the tokens to bring back the hairs, which I thought was very spicy. You had an Unearth play at one point. And but because you were on really low resources, you were not able to kill us.
So the pinch point
discovery, I think it was.
Yeah. So once Bray was out and it was on, so I was in first, Dredge in second, you in third. Had Dredge not targeted, I forget what he targeted. He targeted one of my things and forced me to.
Oh, the fear of burning alive made you protect the Corpse Knight.
So had I not been forced to protect my Corpse Knight, then my plan is at the end of Dredge's turn was to flicker one of my hairs and kill you, come to my turn, and then kill him
immediately.
So yeah, it was that close. That
really close. Yeah, it was honestly a great game because of that. It's like there's sometimes it can be frustrating in a game when your deck doesn't do the thing you want to do. But I think at the end of the day, when you look back at that game, it was really close. One thing that also did change the game is the Teshar Brebu was not dead in the game when they conceded. So that also, and I didn't think about it much at the time, but afterwards I was like, oh, interesting. I wonder how the game would have been if we had to kill him as well, because he wasn't dead. His combo was stopped, right? So that was one thing to mention there as well. I have photos of that one as well. So essentially, and my opening hand was pretty good. I did. There was also, I think one of my land drops that I hit was with a Renegade map, which usually, most of the time, and this is the reason why Renegade map, which is the 1 mana tapped artifact that searches for a land. The reason that I play that card is that most of the time, it's better to draw that than an untapped land because it's a spell. It's a spell that finds a land. In your opening turns, it just finds you. If you play it on 1, you find your second land drop, you play your third Path Iconoclast, you're good to go. Later on, I'm very happy that it's an artifact because that means I'm going to get a double ping off of my Reckless Fireweaver, my Ingenious Artillerist, and I'm going to get multiple pings off of the non-creature spells. But in this particular game, it did bite me, and it meant that I was a full turn behind. So, we make these choices with our decks, and sometimes they're not exactly what we hope they are. But yeah, that was a good round, and it was very, very, very close. I think that everybody basically did what they were supposed to. Brebu, I think, knew that they were on a clock because Dredge ramped very quickly and had access to Fear of Burning Alive 2 turns ahead of clock.
Which you countered?
Off of, Mind Stone. Yeah, and I countered it. Yeah, and the reason I countered it at the time, normally there's 2 things. One, because I was low resource, I knew that if he killed my TPI, I would have to spend, I would be time walked.
Yep.
And if it died again, I was not going to play my TPI again because the life totals were dwindling. I didn't have, I was low land count. I think I ended the game maybe with 5 mana, maybe more. So I ended up countering it because even though it was going to kill your Corpse Knight, it was definitely going to kill my TPI. I didn't have a removal spell in hand to kill it if it resolved. And on top of that, the thing that it was killing for Teshar was meaningless. It was a Mirror Retriever. It actually would have helped him, right? Because the Mirror Retriever would have died. He would have got the Chromatic Star back. And then that's part of the combo, right? Is to loop those things. So he had a Draw Scorpion, which would have allowed him to tap and untap his Felwar Stone for infinite mana, or I think mana neutral or infinite mana, and then draw his deck. So
mana neutral, just draw. Yeah.
Mana neutral.
Yeah,
I think it was. Yeah.
Yeah, because you'd have to put the mana into. Actually, no. You put the mana. You filter the mana to sacrifice it. So yeah, it's
I think it was mana positive. It was 1 mana positive turn. And you were actually there for it when I was I tanked a little bit on a turn because I was like, interesting. We have a sack outlet. We have a Teshar with almost enough with plenty of mana to resolve it. We have the artifact that he can tap and untap for mana. We have the Draw Scorpion. We have the Chromatic Star Draw Engine, and we have the Mirror Retriever. And it was like, oh, I think we're about to die here.
Mm-hmm.
And so I made the hard choice to not develop on on that turn, which I really wanted to do because I wasn't doing anything. You know, I was just like kind of just struggling to find my shit. And I'm glad that we did because we would have definitely died.
Yep.
So I countered his Teshar, and that was the end for them. So that was game one. Managed to pull that one off. Really, really close game. Game two was I was in first seat. And this is a pod that would be replayed in the finals. South Lake
almost in the exact order.
Criminal Pass. Yeah, the exact order, except that South and Duke were swapped. Yeah, which is kind of wild. It means that everybody was doing well because those people all made it to the finals. So South was on Imoen Criminal Past, which, to be honest, I've never seen that before, and it was like Voltron with a commander finish, or sorry, a combo finish.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I didn't learn about the combo until we were in the lobby after the tournament was done, and that was like, oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I maybe damn near died. But it's probably I don't know how he combos, but there was definitely like the Criminal Pass is all about the number of creatures in your graveyard, and it gives you a buff to your commander. And so I suspect that there's something along the lines of like Archaeomancer and Songs of the Damned, and then maybe some sort of like way to reuse them.
He made mention. He's on a little hiatus as well. I need to, because he talked about
speculating. I don't know, but
he talked about a Merfolk Looter type combo, and I'm like, Merfolk Looter has a combo.
I don't. Yeah, he mentioned, he was like, I wish we had more of those, and I didn't realize at the time that had to do with a combo. So I'm speculating. I don't know what the combo is in it, but when you're on a very creature heavy game plan, immediately my brain goes to what are the rituals? Well, we have Songs of the Damned, and Songs of the Damned is one of the biggest rituals. It's huge. It's like a high tide level. Sometimes more. And
he's got 41 creatures in the deck.
41. Okay, so yeah, that's probably, and then maybe like your Culling the Weak type stuff, Archaeomancers. I'm not sure. Maybe reanimation of some sort. But and then there was Duke Slayer in position 3 on Disciple of Deceit, which I want to put some note to, and then Beachbot God on his Mystic Enforcer. So game 2, I had an extremely powerful hand. My opening hand was right up there in maybe the top 10, maybe like the top 10th or top 5th percentile. I would say it wasn't the most explosive thing that you can manage. TPI does have some very, they're not super likely to happen, but like, yeah, you include your like Lotus Petals and your Springleaf Drums and stuff like that. And you can definitely have like 5 or 6 tokens by like turn 3 very quickly and have like a full hand.
Mm-hmm.
But it was good. I got tempoed by a Seal of Removal right at the beginning of the game. Turn 1 Seal of Removal. Turn 2 I played TPI. It got bounced back to my hand. So I got tempoed, like I kind of time walked a turn behind. And then I missed land drops, 2 of them. And there were a ton of hate pieces in this game. It was really interesting. There was 2 Aether Spell Bombs, a Seal of Removal, a Nihil Spell Bomb. And if you think about it, like Essence Warden, the 1 mana green Soul Attendant or
Soul Sister.
Soul Sister is a counter to me. That's like the Soul Sisters are like one of the best things you can do to not die to TPI. You run one of those out, and I have to decide whether I'm going to kill like the big combat threat that's punching my teeth in, the combo creature, or the fucking 1/1 that has made it like that makes it likely that it's going to take 12 turns to kill you. Like I might be able to do it, but they're really, really annoying. And so I ended up leaving it because there were bigger fish to fry, and it became basically impossible for anybody to win. Duke, there was no way that they were going to be able to win unless we started like hard cannibalizing each other. And with the graveyard, there was graveyard hate. There was like the bounce spells. I was had a pretty full grip. I think that if I'd had 120 minutes, I could have won that game because it would have come down to me and Adam with the Mystic Enforcer, and I had great cards in hand for that. But ultimately, that one went to a draw, and I got pressured pretty heavily by a South who found it difficult to do damage because the menace is not enough to get through like 7 tokens, right? You just like put 2 in front of them. And what I learned in that match that was really important for the finals, which we'll get to in a moment here, is that neither Duke nor South had wraths. And there was one wrath that I think that South had, which was an Echoing Truth. And Echoing Truth is a decent answer to TPI for the tokens. However, my deck is built to beat Echoing Truth and Echoing Decay. Because if you lose the target for that spell, it doesn't bounce all of them anymore. It's not like you're choosing a name and then casting it. I have a lot of cards like Collateral Damage, for example, that were in my hand that are great because you stack the token that's targeted, do 3 damage to something, and then the spell fizzles kind of in a way. I also had like I think an onboard Pyrite Spellbomb, 2 cards that I added right before the tournament that ended up being really, really good. And we can talk a little bit about some of the advances I've made with TPI as well. Overall, though, I was really, really the big standout is I was really impressed with Disciple of Deceit. That was one of the big takeaways. Disciple of Deceit is such a sick commander. And you and I have been around long enough in cPDH to remember when people would noodle around with that deck, and you could slowly see their brains break because it's so complicated. I
think Duke holds the record for the maximum number of cards I've seen tutored for.
Yeah, like 9.
I mean, every single game, tutor. Now, I mean, and what's interesting about the
2-mana commander, so you're going to tutor like on average 7 times in a game if you don't have any untap effects. Like,
and a lot of the conversation between rounds was like, okay, do you remove Disciple? Do you it's like the whole counter the tutor, counter what they search for conundrum.
Yeah. And I thought about that a little bit. There weren't a lot of opportunities in the games that I played to actually tag the Disciple of Deceit with a removal spell. And so that was a little bit scary. But I was also, especially in the finals, I was putting on enough pressure that the discussion wasn't about tutoring combo pieces, but in fact, staying alive. And so that's kind of one thing that, plays into how you can address combo in a pod, is that when combo players or people playing combo are forced to look for things or do things that aren't developing their combo because they're dying, there's one of 2 things that happens. One, they're not looking for the pieces that are going to win them the game, or they are, and they're forced to go off with their combo with less mana, less resources, and less protection. So that's really where pressure is really important, and it's one of the reasons why, like TPI, I don't do a lot of attacking. There's one time where I do,
Keep
or
watch.
2. Well, yeah, so Keep Watch is one of the cards, and I'll do that even if it means losing like half of my tokens. Because it's just an insane draw spell, drawing like 11, 12, 15 cards, it's stupid. Even when it's drawing 4, it's above the curve, right? But there's 2 instances. One, we're at the end of the game, and I need to push a little extra damage, and there's only one other player, and I just need to kill them, right? Flurry of burn spells, pingers, and a bunch of random attackers, just YOLO them in. But most of the time, I don't do a lot of attacking. The times where I do, and it's not the end of the game, is when I'm just getting cheap shots in on the combo player. Because that's one way that I can kind of keep the ball rolling a little bit, is to send in a couple attackers every turn, just a little bit of nickel and diming here and there at the cost of maybe 1 or 2 of my attackers. And that's generally how I address that. But it was, we had a very long final turn, which was pretty much, I think, the nail in the coffin for anybody being able to win. The last turn was like 12 minutes. And it was, I think,
This is round 2, right?
Yeah, round 2. So everybody kind of knew that the game was heading towards a draw. I don't take draws because it's a protest vote against the points that you get for a draw. I really don't like the dynamics that occur when people get points for draws. There's a lot of problems with it, and
it might be a non-issue moving forward. Just saying.
Hopefully, I fingers crossed. I've been bringing it up for a long time, and I know that there's reasons to have it. One of them is definitely that well, somebody actually gave me a good explanation for it, and the funny thing is I can't remember it now. But somebody did give me a good explanation for it. But the reasons not to are multitudinous. One of them in particular is that when you get into a game where somebody is clearly very much ahead, and the 3 players at the table realize that there's an archenemy, they can play, and it's not against the rules to do this. You can take whatever game action you want, right? But you can choose to take a lot of game actions that use a lot of time, and then that leads to a point where it's unlikely that the person in the lead is going to do that, especially if you have 3 players doing it. Now, that wasn't really what happened here. There was a long turn and a lot of game actions taken on that last one that led to me never even coming back to my turn. I never even got to play my last turn, but it was still a good game. I think one thing there was, in the moment, I was a little frustrated that we didn't actually finish the game, but I shook it off. Came into my 3rd game. This one was with Patuan on Glaring Fleshraker, which we've seen a colorless deck win a tournament before.
Actually, Glaring Fleshraker.
No, it was Patchwork Automaton.
Oh, that's right.
That was the one.
That's right.
Yep. And in complete transparency, and congrats to the winner, of course, but I don't think that's ever going to happen again. The likelihood of that happening, where we have a colorless deck that has like 2 protection spells in it, maybe 1. You have like Herbal Poultice and Tormod Script.
So, Cyberman
Fleshraker has won a tournament?
It has.
Wait, what? Oh, okay. Well, I rewind that. Either
In
way,
Philly, in Philly, it
sick.
in Philly it has.
Okay. I think it's a really sick deck, and there's a number of reasons for that. When you think about
and Cyberman Patrol.
Okay. So Glaring Fleshraker is
not
massive
one, top 4.
pot compression.
Top 4. But
Glaring Fleshraker is everything that TPI wants to be with the price of being colorless. It is TPI in that it makes tokens every time you do anything, basically. It is the pinger, and because the tokens sacrifice to make mana, it's also a Foundry Inspector. And that is really gross. So in that game, Patuan got off to a blistering start. I remember turn 4, his turn took several minutes, and he was playing very quickly. He basically emptied his entire hand and then drew a bunch of cards off of weirdo shit like, your wedding invitation, no, it wasn't wedding invitation. It was the new one that crews a vehicle and ETBs and draws. It can saddle and crew vehicles. And then there was like an arcane spyglass. There was like a Bonder's ornament, maybe. I can't remember, but it was just like a bunch of draw stuff. And he had us down to like well under 20 life. I think I was like 18 very early on. I was pretty happy to see him in seat 1 because in that situation, I know that I can outgrind him, and I know that us pinging at the same table, if you think about it, you have Glaring Fleshraker position 1, Kino, Dargo Kelleth, so Voltron, Boros Voltron, me in seat 3 on TPI, and then Lawbert on Sphinx Summoner. So I really liked my odds going into that game. Or I thought that it was like moderately positive because 2 pingers in a pod usually means that the other players are just going to die, like on accident. Like one of them is going to get hit by something, and then the pinging is hitting everybody, and suddenly they're at like 7 life. And they're just out. The scary thing was that there's a Dargo Kelleth player. And Dargo Kelleth is like, we talked about this on the phone when I was coming back from work. Dargo is a great deck against TPI. TPI does not want to put 5 tokens, 6 tokens, 7 tokens in front of a Dargo. The fact that you have white means you get flying, you get protection. There's a lot of other stuff you can do where the Dargo player, in a lot of cases, can basically leave the TPI player for last. And if they're in white, they get lifelink. And so you're just like, lifelink my stupid big ogre, the pirate, pirate giant. And like, I'm going to swing at you for like 12 and there might be a double strike spell, right? And you might just be dead right now. Like it's spooky. So my main concern was if anything, if I'm going to die to something, it's probably Dargo. If that's going to happen. I didn't think I was the top priority for threat assessment for Dargo, but you never know what people are thinking in their head. Patuan took a hit. Lawbert took a hit. I don't think I ended up taking a hit from the Dargo because the other players were developing nicely. Lawbert developed really quickly. He had ramp, multiple pieces of ramp, lots of draw. He had a turn 3 Murmuring Mystic, which anyone who plays Murmuring Mystic, that's a very, very good thing. It's a strong start defensively. He had life gain, of course, with like Crypt Incursion and other stuff to stop my pinging and Patuan's pinging. And so it was an interesting matchup, and I ended up narrowly winning that one off of a lucky top deck. What happened was Patuan didn't have any cards in hand, but he did have like 14 toughness on board and a lot of ways to draw cards. He had an active Arcane Spyglass, which is like you like sack lands to draw cards and stuff. It's kind of a weirdo one, but it's kind of what you play in Glaring Fleshraker because you're just so hungry for cards. And he had an onboard Unstable Obelisk, which, for those of you who don't know, you can pay 7 to sacrifice this Manolith and exiles or destroy something permanent. So I think that the Dargo player Kino was in a tough position because he didn't have any life gain that he drew. And even though he got Dargo out really quickly, like turn 2 or 3, I want to say it was very quick. I was not developing very quickly. Patuan was out really fast. Lawbert was out really fast. And so Lawbert and Patuan ended up getting the collapse from the Dargo. And then when we got to the end of the game, my engines got online and I was feeling pretty strong at that point, even though I didn't have a lot of cards because I knew that I had a lot of outs. And I had 3 pingers in play. And then I ended up just burning the table out. Dargo went after Patuan because Patuan was presenting lethal on both of us, or at least it appeared that way. And I managed to squeak that one out. So that was a very pucker game. My butt cheeks were clenched. I was very much not certain that I was going to win it. In fact, none of my games were certain that I was going to win them. And that was one of the reasons why. So from there, game 4, I was in position 1, Duke on Deceit, Scalp Lake Vibes on Imoen, Criminal Past, Beach on Mystic Enforcer. I had an insane hand. My opening hand was very good, definitely like top 5 or 10 percentile, just like really sick. Very functional, I would say. It had all the ingredients I wanted. Lots of draw, had a pinger, had ramp, lands, whatever. So I hit all my land drops that game, which is great. And I pretty quickly started hearing the signals from the table that people were concerned about the pace of my development. And I thought it unlikely that I would be able to politic my way out of that because I had won the previous game. So I did something that I don't often do, and I took a bit of a risk, and I leaned into being archenemy. And I kind of just went bananas. I had the best thing about my opening hand was that I had ever decanter of endless water with a distant melody. And for those of you who follow Third Path Iconoclast and the patrons are familiar with this, one of the big things that I've returned to that has dramatically increased my odds of winning games in TPI is Thought Vessel and Decanter of Endless Water. These spells that allow these artifact rocks that allow you to keep all of your cards when you draw like a ton are broken in the deck. The difference between if I cast a distant melody and I have to discard to 7 cards after drawing 15 or 10, I have to then win the game on those 7 cards because the table is not going to look fondly upon the fact that I've seen an extra 7 to 12 to 15 cards, right? Like that's not, nobody likes that. Mm-hmm. So my odds of winning the game when I cast a spell like that and I can find or I already have a spell that allows me to keep those cards into the next turns dramatically increases my chances of actually being able to win that game. And so I had that. I had Keep Watch. I think I had a Distant Melody, and I leaned into it. One of the big tells that I had from the table was from the previous game, but it was kind of confirmed when people started tutoring for like Duke and South were both tutoring for cards with Drift of Phantasm, and there was no Drown in Sorrow. Tutoring for there was a Fade Away at one point, which actually that was something I forgot to mention. So there was a Fade Away fairly early on, and it actually damaged everybody else more than it did me. I had 2 mana up. I had 7 creatures in play. I decided to sack my Moonsnare prototype and 4 tokens, and I still had 2 tokens and a pinger and like 8 mana or something, or 7 mana. It was a lot. I'd ramped nicely. But yeah, Fade Away was the only answer other than Echoing Decay. So when I saw the Drift of Phantasm not tutor up a Drown in Sorrow, when I saw the Dimir Houseguard not tutor up an Evankar's Justice or a Pestilence, that was when I started to realize that there was a chance I could win that game. Because every single point prior to that, I was very nervous that this 1v3 that I was in was not going to end well for me. 1v3s in a pod like that with like, if you're Hollow Marauder, you might be able to do it if you've had a godlike hand, because you're inflicting such incredible asymmetric resource disparity on people that you might be able to do it. TPI though, I don't gain my life points back. I have 1 card in the deck with my prior build, and that's Sylvok Lifestaff to get my life total back. Your life points are precious, right? So the whole game, I was fending off attacks, throwing my tokens in front of stuff, but my draws were just insane. I had a lot of removal. The only thing that lacked in that game was that I only drew 1 counter spell the entire game, and I'm pretty sure I saw 55 cards, which I have 10 counter spells. So I was clenched tight, watching these guys tutor at 4 and 3 mana and not knowing whether there was a sweeper or not. Had there been a sweeper, that game would have been a completely different story, completely different ballgame. And that was pretty spooky. So I think what was interesting is that they were, collectively, they were all talking at the table about how they thought that I was basically that I'd already won the game. And in my mind, I'm like, dude, 1 sweeper, and I have 0 answer to it right now. Mm-hmm. So in my mind, I'm like, I'm definitely not won the game. So I was kind of confused. I was like, yeah, I'm like really, I'm ahead right now, but like
that could always turn on a dime.
Yep. So it was interesting, the dichotomy between how I felt and how they felt. We were all feeling bad about our odds of winning the game, and when that changed was when they openly discussed the fact that nobody had any sweepers to deal with it, and that was when it was like, okay, I think I can win this game. I need to play really cleanly. I need to put a lot of pressure on as quickly as I can and try and hold up an answer for some random shit that I might die to. Like, I was thinking as deep as, does South Lake Vibes have Soul Shriek or Ghoul Feast or Moodmark Painter in their deck, which are like options that you have in Hollow Marauder? Because he's like, I'm seeing him cycle all these creatures, and his command zone says +X+O and Menace, where X is the number of creatures in your graveyard. So I'm envisioning any possible way I could randomly die to like 25 commander damage, right? So I was puckered. I spent like a whole turn. I think I cast like Keep Watch. I cast like maybe Of One Mind, Shared Discovery, Treasure Cruise. I am digging for a counterspell so that I don't die. It was spooky. So ultimately,
So
I
how
did
did
end up
it?
taking
How
down.
did it end? How did it? How did?
I end,
I'm
yeah,
starting. I'm starting to get tired, so I'm starting to slur my words.
I know we started this late. You're good. So the way it ended was just kind of like how TPI normally does. You've got pingers that are applying attrition, and then you have a flurry of burn spells, and so and some attackers. But after the point when I learned that they didn't have any wraths, I was able to go pretty hard. Like I just spent most of my mana each turn. All I needed to know is that I had like 2 mana up to sacrifice a token that might be killed by Echoing Decay or Echoing Truth, so that I didn't lose my board, and then some burn spells to kill random combo creature. There was one turn near the end where Duke was going to untap and tutor, and I think I did the right thing by just killing it on my turn. A lot of people, don't like sorcery speed removal. I'm a big fan of using instant speed removal at sorcery speed to ensure that my kill spell takes your creature and not your counter spell. I don't want your counter spell. I want your combo creature, right? And so I cast a collateral damage and I killed it, so he wasn't able to tutor. And I think that was kind of when I started to really feel safe. And then I just, ended it with a bunch of burn spells. And actually, that was one of the big things that I did with the deck before the tournament, is that I shifted some of the removal to being cards like Pyrite Spellbomb, which also draws a card. It's also an artifact that just sits in play. It can be very hard for combo players to get around. Collateral damage, which is just 1 mana instant speed, 3 damage to any target, additional cost, sack a creature. I shifted over to those so that my removal was a mixture of kill spells that could also go face. And that was a huge success, I would say. It felt really good. I also, before the tournament, I increased the number of draw spells. So now and after the tournament, I did as well. Now I'm sitting at 29 draw spells, and I'm trying to get one last one in there to get it up to 30. Because the deck always likes to draw more cards. Yep. So Cryogen Relic was an addition as well. Cryogen Relic, I think, did not come up in any of my games. It would have been very good against Dargo. And overall, my deck felt really good. The funny thing is the list that people are going to be able to see right now has had some updates to it. The changes that I've made since then is I've added Bender's Water Skin, which is the new card from the Avatar set. And it's a 3-mana Manalith, makes a mana of any color, and it says untap this artifact each other player's end step. Untap step.
Mm-hmm.
Unreal how good this card is. I've been playtesting with it a ton. The ability to tap down to 1 mana and then on the opponent's turn untap, and I've got counterspell or 2 1-mana kill spells, or hold up an Aether Spellbomb and a Dispel or a Metallic Rebuke. It's just really good. So I've added that one. I added in Candy Trail because Candy Trail gets double pings off of the artifact pingers because you get the non-creature trigger to make the soldier, and then you get the artifact coming in. It's also a great turn 1 play. Like Candy Trail and Witching Well have been insane at allowing me to keep a 1 or 2 land hand, cast it on 1, find the second land, and then go. Yep, and then I've got an artifact in play for Thoughtcast, for Improvise, all that stuff. I brought in the Lembus as well. Lembus is really good. A little bit of incidental life gain is really, really nice. So now I have 3 sources of a little bit of life gain. And it's possible I'll draw Lembus twice in a game because it shuffles back into the deck. And then I also I cut Ren's Resolve and Reckless Impulse, which they have been very good for me in every game that I've played except for in the tournament. And so there may be an element of this where because they sucked in the tournament, they were awful. I didn't get to play any of the spells off of either of them when I used them. They just rotted, right? Because of just whatever, happened. I had to do other things. I did cut them. And instead I added the Candy Trail and I added the Lembus so that I have more artifacts. So that's another shift as well, trying to get as many artifacts in the deck as possible because
Improvise.
Improvise, but also when you turn a Reckless Fireweaver into a Gutter Snipe because you have 2 artifacts, it's really good. It's really, really good. So the deck overall felt great. The only other change was cutting Unruly Catapult for the new Mysidian Elder, which is the 3-mana 1/3 human wizard.
Non-creature.
Black wizard. It's just a Firebrand Archer. I learned something very cool for those of you watching, and for those of you who play combo decks where this is relevant. Mysidian Elder is the first pinger that we've gotten that is a wizard, which means that you can tutor for it with Step Through and Vidalcan Aether Mage. And there's other interactions with that card too that are worth paying attention to that may influence the way I build this deck in the future. If you can return Mysidian Elder to your hand, or you can flicker it, that ETB produces multiple Firebrand Archers. So if you think about it, you use your Aether Spellbomb or your Seal of Removal to bounce it back to hand and then replay it, you are getting another Firebrand Archer off of that thing. If you can unearth it as well because it's 3 mana, which means that you can play it out, plunder it. You can literally have a turn where you go turn 3, play it out, turn 4, sack it to Village Rites, play Unearth, bring it back, and now you've got 2 Firebrand Archers, which is really, really sick. So Mysidian Elder is a standout winner. It's also 2 bodies on 1 for Impact Tremors, Molten Gatekeeper, and Witty Roastmaster. It's 2 creatures for Convoke,
And for edicts.
Really good. Yeah, and it's also a 1/3, and for edicts. That's a really good point. It's not a token. So if you cast a Chain Devil and I have that in play, then I'm sacking that, and it doesn't kill my pinger. It's even better than Firebrand Archer in some ways. Like,
do you have any?
yeah, a lot of good changes.
Do you have any remaining updates to the list? I mean, that's kind of like an unspoken, like.
Yeah. That's pretty much it. So the removal changed to become more damage based, where it could go base.
More burn.
Yeah, burn. The draw spells focusing more on artifacts, as well as focusing on things that are less timing specific. The Reckless Impulse and the Ren's Resolve. Increasing the number of draw spells by slot compressing with cards like Pyrite Spellbomb, where it's a draw spell and it's a removal spell and it's an artifact in play and it's 2 artifacts for the triggers. And then the last thing was tweaking the pinger suite to include the Mysidian Elder. So overall, very pleased with the deck, and more changes to come, I think, for sure. Probably Prophetic Prism is going to come back in. Ilvoy Lightjammer is another one that I wanted to mention before we wrap up the deck thing. Ilvoy Lightjammer came out with the new set, Echoes of Eternity, or Edge of Eternity, and it's an artifact with flash, 1 and a blue. It's really similar to Bladed Battle Fan. ETB gives attaches and gives hexproof to that creature, and then it gives it +1/+2, and it equips for 3. And I really want this card in the deck because what it does to TPI is that it protects it, and then it makes it a 3/3, which means it doesn't die to the wraths. And that is really good. And it being an artifact also means I'm going to get double triggers. It's also going to be there for improvise. It's going to be really good. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. Melded Moxite was in the list for the tournament. But yeah, other than that,
sweet.
That's basically it. So there you go. That's kind of how the list looked overall. The things that I improved on most in this tournament, and actually this is a tournament where I'm actually more proud of one than other ones.
So we're at an hour and 20 minutes.
Yep.
So let's
we'll wrap up with this. So the big thing for me was I improved a lot of my table talk. That was a big part. Knowing when to shut up.
You also played. So you talked about pushing the tempo in the last game. You were actually being more proactive throughout the tournament. Like you were intentionally more proactive. So I think that was a big change as well.
Yeah, you noticed that there were a couple people that noticed that because TPI is a control deck, right? And it has a good closing power because of the burn spells. But the funny thing is that might have looked intentional. That was intentional in the last game. But in the other games, it was just how my hand drew out. Like in my game against Patuan and Kino and Lawbert, I just happened to get like 4 or 5 pingers. And I just had to play them out because I had no more. I didn't have anything else to do, right? But I think the changes to the deck allowed me to close the games out faster, and that was good. But I definitely felt like I was playing more proactively just because of the hands I was dealt. But yeah, and then the other thing was just not like I think learning when to just allow everything to happen and to not engage in any table talk. That was a place where I did something kind of different than what I normally do, which is I tend to be pretty active and talkative, and I was pretty quiet for most of the tournament. So yeah. Other than that, my main gratitude is just for Chris. I know that I think with all the stuff happening that's happened with with Sanctuary closing down, and with the tournaments and the cheating and all this other stuff, there's been a lot of stressors, I think, and so I'm really grateful to Chris that he continues to do what he does because these tournaments are a gift to the community. There's no money to be made in it. It's very selfless to be doing what he does.
And because of that, I'm very. I don't know. The only thing that I've ever complained to Chris about is last year I went on a stint of like 4 or 5 common causes in a row where I was stuck in the 3-pod, and that's like the worst place to ever be. And it's like,
understandable that you'd be upset about that. I mean, that sucks. That's like not. It doesn't. 3-pods do not preserve the integrity of the match. That's the problem. The integrity of the match is demolished. There's so many cards out there. Like if you're Hollow Marauder in a 3-pod. You are drawing 1 less card every single time. If you are playing Extort, you are gaining 1 less life every time.
It just makes it so difficult for like control decks if you're trying to experiment with a control deck. Yeah.
And Siphon Mind, you draw 1 less card too. Yeah. It just sucks. If you're playing Refurbished,
but I even felt guilty for that one complaint. So like I try to leave the tournament organizers alone. That's not everybody's tack. But that's what I try to do.
It's also not his fault, right? Like it's the responsibility of everybody who's in the community to get the hell in these tournaments. If we've got not enough people to fill a pod, get in there, man. Throw your coin in the ring. It's a lot of fun. These tournaments, if you approach them lighthearted, good-natured, and with no expectations, you're going to have a great time. It's well worth the money. It's essentially, think about it this way. It's like $15 to $20 for a day of entertainment where you get to hang out with a bunch of fun people and you get to play the highest levels of cPDH. And so, yeah, throw your hat in the ring and get in there. And yeah, thank you again, Chris, for hosting those. And if you get a chance and you've watched this, hit him up and thank him as well, because
absolutely,
it's thankless work. Thankless work.
Okay. So if you want to engage with the number 2 player for the last year, sorry that I waited all episode for that. If you want to engage with Ryan, if you don't know where the Common Connoisseurs Discord is, I'll put a link to the Discord in the description below. I'll also put a link to his YouTube channel, a link to his current iteration of TPI, which is also ironically the same iteration, or his historical version, all wrapped there in the history. It's all together. I'm tired. He kept me up. He kept me up.
Daddy Clay is way past his bedtime right now.
It's currently 10:55 p.m. So
I can't remember the last time I went to sleep before then, but you gotta get your beauty rest, man.
Well, I'm gonna be up at 5 every morning, regardless of whether I want to or not. So
I don't know how you do it, man.
I just wake up. That's how I do it.
Yeah, you're your clock. That's how your clock is. Yeah, and I'll put in one last plug as well for those of you who want to support what everyone is doing. Clay has a Patreon doing all this data tracking. This is all a gift to the community. This is all stuff that there's no money in that, and it just feels good, I think, when you're a content creator and you're putting in all this work to see something back that's not about the amount that you get, but the fact that somebody cared to give it. So keep in mind that small amounts of money from a lot of people add up a lot, and if every single person who is in cPDH.guide was giving $1 a month, which is like fundamentally $12 a year, it's absolutely nothing. If everybody was giving $1 a month, that's real money to be able to make investments in new equipment, and to maybe even pay mods. It's the same thing in the connoisseurs. And so for all the content creators, whether it's the PDH pod, whether it's the pals, whether it's Islane, whether it's the connoisseurs, whether it's Clay's cPDH.guide, whether it's Chris, think about how you can support those people with small amounts. And if everybody did that, all content creators would actually have something coming in that would allow them to be less reliant on people who have a lot of money, a lot of disposable income, and collectively we can raise the waters for everybody's ship. And there's a lot in it there. For Clay, you're going to get access to privileged databases where he's doing a lot of really cool number tracking and ways you can look at your own win rate and see how it matches up against other people. And for the connoisseurs, being part of a group of people who are highly motivated, highly skilled, being able to see all these decks ahead of time and being able to work on them months in advance of when you see the video or when they become public. Or with the PDH pod, where you get to see all the transcripts for the recording ahead of time. All this stuff is really cool. And yeah, I encourage you all to find ways to do that. It doesn't need to be a lot. Like, that's why I set my, the starting point as low as I possibly can, which is $2. I would do $1 if I could. But yeah, keep that in mind as you move forward. Collectively, we can all make this community grow a lot more with small contributions financially to the people making it happen.
All right. That's a good exit point. That's a wrap. We'll see you later, folks. Daddy's going to sleep.
Thank you so much. Have a good one, y'all. Catch you on the battlefield.